in this place.
Thank you, Paul. As you were sharing about the comfort level you had in pastoral ministry, as challenging as it was, uh, no question about that. Nonetheless, you were used to it. And so there's a certain kind of acclimation, comfort level. And God has a way of pushing us out of our comfort zones. I know you would agree with that. You've been in various kinds of ministry endeavors, parachurch, local church, now again, senior chaplain working with the Washington County Sheriff's Department. But God has a way of moving us out of our comfort zones. And as we proceed in this interview, I want to discuss with you the coronavirus and how God is moving his people, God's people, out of our comfort zones to actually engage, not disengage, but to engage in this new reality, as some call it, the new normal. And so comfort zones come into play here. I wanted to highlight, we had mentioned this before the interview, about a Business Insider article about what has just been released in the United Kingdom in terms of their own lockdown. And I believe it came out of the Prime Minister's office, somewhere in the government, and it said all non-essential shops, premises, and places of worship will be closed down with weddings and baptisms banned. I don't think it was saying that places of worship are non-essential in one sense. It said all non-essential shops, premises, and places of worship will be closed. But I think for many people, places of worship are seen as non-essential. They're nice, they're helpful, but as Christians, we don't see the building as ultimately the worship center, but wherever we are with God, worship centers are important, places of worship, buildings are important, but it's more than that. I know for you, both in your work as a pastor and now as a chaplain, wherever you go, you're worshiping God, and wherever you go, there is the church. Could you speak to that briefly, Paul, just about how you see missionally the church is wherever God's people are meeting, congregating, connecting, and also engaging others? And then we'll get into the coronavirus more directly.
Yeah. Well, and I'll try not to get ahead of it, but that connection between what the church is, who the church is called to be, what the church is called to be in the world, and how it is that Christ connects us. And I'm not trying to do a shameless plug for your book, but connecting Christ with others in our lives, and how we see it that Christ connects us to each other as the body of believers, but also how Christ calls us to make connections, to build relationships with everyone around us. And in light of this coronavirus, which is calling for social distancing and for self-isolating, it actually reminded me of an old Bible study that I took our youth ministry through back in the late 90s when I was working at a church outside of Phoenix, Arizona. And the Bible study, I believe, came out of Willow Creek. Bill Hybels, Lee Strobel, and it was called Contagious Christianity. And I remember one visual for that Bible study was a series of matchsticks lined up. And the idea that you start the flame on one matchstick, and if the matchsticks are close enough together, they all catch fire, and it just spreads. There's been a recent video circulating on social media about what it means to socially distance ourselves and keep this virus from infecting more people or becoming more contagious. And it's the visual of matchsticks in a line, and one matchstick coming out of the line and stopping the flame. God calls us to remain in relationships, however that happens. We don't have to be in the same room to pray for one another. We don't have to be sitting next to somebody in a pew to join our faith together. And I had a good friend when I was growing up whose mom, Mrs. Bowles, would say that whenever we got through a difficult situation, emotionally or physically, and we came to the other side and we were well and things turned out good, she would make the comment, somebody has a praying grandma. And it was the idea that somebody's grandma is always praying for them and covering them with prayer. Um, and how is it that we can continue to stay connected through prayer by joining our faith together and being available to each other by phone, by computer, um, just to stay connected in any way we can, so that our faith continues to bless one another and to bless the world around us. So that not that we become less contagious in our faith, but we continue to be contagious in our faith, even as we try to stop the spread of a virus from infecting other people and stopping that contagion.
Powerful words, Paul, and not only the matchstick idea in a positive way of contagious Christianity, of the love of God impacting us